my pot is a little hard to get in this. All right. Hi. So my pot has been refound. Nope. It's been smooth. And it's ready to be decorated, I think. I can't remember how far. I'm pretty sure I got pretty close to what I wanted it to look like. It might take a minute to just peek over the surface, but meh. It's pretty good. Maybe not perfect. I'm going to do just a little bit here. I can see some, I think maybe last time I got almost done. And then had to run out. So I'm going to just make sure. And then the bag sometimes like makes little bunks on the surface. So I'm going to just kind of go over it one more last time. Okay, I'm going to call that good. I just am. You have to move on. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I say I'm going to move on and then I just like hit the surface. Okay. Here's my pot. Here's what's called a decorating disc. You have this in your kit. You want to cut it out. If you may want to cover this in like clear tape and then cut it out just so that it doesn't get ruined. I have a bunch of them, and so I don't worry so much, but it is good to have it so that it is not gonna get ruined, especially if yours is not the stiffer cardboard one. There were several different iterations of this. So you kind of have to, from your plan, what you're going to do is you're going to use this to sort of divide your pot. And roughly. So in my design, I have several of these geometric shapes that are around the pot. And what I want to use this for is to make sure that they're evenly spaced. And you can see it's divided in different areas. The 3 is the triangle, so this is 3 equal distances around the circle. Usually things are done in a dynamic way, meaning if you have a motif that repeats a pattern and you do 3 of something, it's more dynamic than it is if you do 4. 4 is a balanced number and it's even on either side. So you kind of have to decide what you want your design to be. Do you want it to be even and balanced and stable, and that's like harmony and calm? Or do you want it to be active and dynamic, and that is in odds? So that's called the rule of odds versus, symmetry or evenness, which is they're just design principles that you choose when you're choosing your pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm turning my pot over and I'm going to work, or I'm going to just sketch from behind. You may be able to set yours on a rim, which is fine. You can set it on the rim gently and carefully. I prefer to just hold it between my legs like this because I know I'm not going to smush the rim. And then I can easily cradle it and work from there. I'm going to put this the best I can in the center of the bottom. Like, I'm never going to be perfect, right? But I'm going to do it the best I can. And then I need sort of a marking tool, so a needle tool or any kind of sharp tool that's around me. Okay, this is a sharp tool. And so I have to decide, do I want this in thirds or fifths? So this gives you a division of 5, 7, 9. You can imagine that 7 to 9 and 7 to 9 are halves and halves to do 4. If that makes sense, like you're just really using it as a guide to line up your pots. So if you want to do 3 or 4, you can imagine how this goes. I'm gonna do. I don't know if I want to do 5. I'm gonna do 5. I'm gonna do 5. I'm gonna keep it dynamic. I'm gonna do 5 geometric patterns across. So I'm using the line at 5 to just go. I'm making a light line where 5 is along my pot. Right? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. Now they're equal space between each other around the outside of this pot, and I'm going to just draw that line straight up the edge. Now this is a really light indentation that I am going to get rid of after I'm completely, like you won't even see it when I'm done. So I'm just doing a light surface line, a very light surface line up the side of the pot, so that I have like a midline of where my fifths are. And I can see that that's about like that distance, right, between each pot, or each side of the pot, or each mark. Right, okay. So I have that divided in fifths. I can see it from the top. I can see it from the side. It's a very light line that I've scribed on the surface. So I'm going to show you what that line looks like. Up close, you can see it's very light. It's not very deep, but it equally divides my pot, which is what I want, which is awesome. Right, and then I can always revisit that. It's just going to help me plan. And I might be doing this a little early because we're going to paint white over all of this, but I like to have this ready to go when I'm thinking about my design. Okay? So I'm going to be using paper resist. I'm going to be using it to do banding and my design. So, excuse me, do you see how the design here goes out like that? So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to just take some paper and fold it in half. So I don't need very much of this. So I'm just going to, but I do need 5 of them. And I'd like them to be all the same. So, and I want them to be about this big. So I'm going to take, this is folded in half, and I'm going to take 5. Yours is going to be different than mine, right? They're not all the same. But I'm taking 3. I might make one extra just to have like an oops one. An oops one is always a great idea to have, sort of a backup plan. So where I would need 5 of these, I have 1. I'm gonna now. This is just paper, so like, don't get over complicated. So just wait a second and watch what I'm doing. So I'm gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, well, I didn't make an extra one, but I can really quick. Here's an extra one. Number 6. Okay, they're all together, and I'm going to use them just stacked together to cut. Right? So I'm going to cut my design. Now I'm going to draw my design. Oops, can you see over here? going to draw my design based on this geometric shape. I'm going to save both pieces of paper. Okay, I'm going to save both pieces of paper. So in my design, I'm going to just trace 1/2 of it, or I'm going to draw 1/2 of it. So my design comes down. You could use a ruler if you liked. You would probably be better off if you drew it with a ruler, but you know, I'm going to be crazy and kind of do it freehand here and just see if I like my outcome. I have some. So I just drew that half of it. I like it to be a little longer actually, so I'm going to just pull it down a little bit more now that I look at it. I'll hold it up to the side of the pot. I'm going to see if that's okay. If that's double that, one side, two sides. Can't see the line there. Let me see here. So, 1, 2, I think it's okay. So now I'm going to cut it. I'm cutting this. I'm trying to cut it so that I'm saving both sides, the negative and the positive. And you will see why later. My dog is going nutty today. And yes, you need to use this newsprint paper. Other papers won't work as well. Okay, so that's my little design, right? I don't know if I like it or not, but I can always adjust. But this will go on the pot from a band down. So I'm going to just hold it on here, right? So this would be my design like this. One would be on the next line, which is, I can't see. There's one here, right? One here. So I have them spaced evenly. Okay? So I have that, plus I have the negative space one, which means I have this shape. And that's important because it depends on, like, I might use this to do the outside of the black line while this is the inside, and then da-da-da-da-da. So I keep all of it as my plan. Then when I do straight banded lines, right, I will just cut, and you can use like a ruler to make a line, but one side is what's important for the most part. Like, you'll always work off of one side. So I could just cut, yours are shorter, so you'll go this way, but I will just cut like the best I can and remember which side is the factory side and which side is the one I cut. So like, I'm going to use this side because that's the side that they used. And I will use that for straight line making. Okay, even diagonal lines you could use it for. Okay, so those are like my prep works that I have before I start. But even then, even though that I'm starting, I feel like I'm missing a line right there. So I really do. I feel like I missed a line when I was drawing. And I definitely missed a line. Boops! I'm going to reline it up and mark this line gently. I don't know how I did that, but it's probably because I'm talking and working at the same time. So, just gonna do my fifth line up. I can always come back and redo this, but I like to have it underneath the glaze rather than on top of the glaze. For me, having those marks there, I can see them faintly underneath the glaze rather than on top of the glaze, and it kind of buries them, but it still gives me a guide to work from. So that's my goal. All right, so I'm ready. Now I'm going to paint the majority of my pot in the ground color, which is the white for me. So this is the lightest color, and I know on my pot the bottom is going to be black, so I'm not going to worry so much about that, but I am going to worry from everything from that black line up. And I'm going to paint white. So I'm going to just rest it in my bouquet, and I'm going to get our brushes. So I have my own brushes, but what did yours look like? These? No. Yes. You want to get the biggest brush you have in the kit. It's not terribly big, but that's what you have. Okay? So you want to get the biggest brush you have. You want to get your lightest color glaze in your set of 3. In my case, it's going to be the white. And I'm going to shake this up real good. Never do this like without checking the top. Right now it's brand new, so the top's never been off. But they've been sitting and shipped and manufactured. They need to be shaken really well. Take off the top. Now, I'll show you mixing glazes in a little bit, but ooh, you want to take this top off. It's kind of messy. It's awesome. Sticky little top. Okay, now you can work, if you're not doing more than one glaze at a time, which you're not, you can work right from and your brush is clean, you can work right from the jar. If you're mixing glazes, you need to pour them into a sub-container, mix, and then use. But I'm going to assume right now that for the first coat that we're not mixing. I will mix my red to be a little darker. So I just dip my brush in and I start painting. It should go on smooth, and it should go on, it's not opaque in the first coat, right? I'm not trying to lob it on and make it real thick. You want to keep your layers just naturally the thickness that comes out of the thickness that, you know, like it is. I know the inside of my pot's going to be different than white, so I'm going to just do the rim. If you do own a wider brush and it's a nice brush and it's clean, go for it. So I own like coating brushes, which are big wide brushes to do this whole thing in, but brushes are super expensive. And these ones are good for detail, and they do go on evenly, like they do allow you to paint your glaze on evenly. So those are the benefits of what we have. You may think, oh, I'm going to save time by like pouring it on and smushing it around with my brush. Don't do that. It's going to crack off. You're going to have a mess. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Fight the urge to like rush your process. Just enjoy painting a little bit on the surface and realize, like, that's where you got to get today. You got to have your design cut out. And you're going to paint 3 layers of white today. That's what's going to happen. This is the most that you have to cover. The rest is all kind of, I mean, you'll have smaller areas after the first one to cover. So it will become slightly easier. I can still see my lines through the paint, but they are getting covered. Keep it on as even. Do it in a circular motion, so I mean around the pot, so that I'm trying to cover the whole thing. I'm going to go low enough to where I want that black line to be, you know, because I want my bottom to be black. That's just what my design is, so I'm not going to paint white all the way to the bottom. You might have to, depending on your design, but and I do want to reassure you, we have one more technique to learn, which is slab construction. And then we will learn that after winter break. And then I will, then you'll have some like choice assignments. So you'll be able to use like the coil building or the slab building or the pinching in combinations in multiple ways to make things that are more of your choice. Right now we're learning some skills. We're going to learn some more surface techniques like sgraffito and besides this paper resist, sgraffito and some texturing things, but like those are smaller assignments, and so you will have some freedom of choice, so you won't have to do everything the way like formulated like this as we move through. But at the beginning I went to teach you some techniques before I set you free to really just go for it, you know. Otherwise you don't learn how to refine, or you don't learn what's possible in glaze, and blah 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 blah. I just put my hand in the glaze, which is awesome because I need to clean up my workspace. All right, one coat, and I'm just gonna let it sit for like 5-10 minutes. It doesn't need to dry. It just needs to be surface dry, so like when I touch it, it doesn't come off on my finger. So I'm waiting for it to not be shiny everywhere. And where I started, it already isn't, so. Just a minute here, let me clean up this. Mess I made. I made a mess. It's already really dry on the surface. The next 2 layers are going to take longer to dry in between. But what it needs to be is not shiny. It needs to be touchable so it doesn't come off on your fingers. Right? So mine is. I'm going to paint my next layer. Turn to where I started and add the next layer. Now white has the least amount of coverage ability, like, because it's a lighter color, like, it won't cover a darker color. It won't cover it will be as opaque. It's more translucent. The nature. This is a little bit different than working like when you paint oil paint. I mean, it depends on your style, but like, I know Renaissance painters started with like black and worked to light. We kind of do the opposite here. So, not always, but just in this particular technique, some artists do it differently. So this is coat number 2. If you are forgetful, you might write down where you're at. Sometimes I forget where I'm at, who I am, and what it all means. So I use alarms and notes, sticky notes, and I'm trying to be very methodical, right? So like I work from the top and I do a section and I work down and then I turn it and I do the same thing so that I'm making sure I'm covering it evenly. It does help. So this time I'm going this way and next time I'm going to go this way. So on the last coat, I'm going to change the direction that I brush my glaze. And that prevents streaking and a couple other issues that can arise. And I have to remind myself to do that because my instinct is to want to paint it the same way each time. But I'm going to change that. If you don't have a pookie at this point, you can rest it on anything that, like you could put it in a bowl as long as the bowl edge isn't marring your pot. Like as long as it's not resting on the edge of the bowl and it's setting down into the bowl, you could use a bowl to turn it or some other tool that's just around in your house. Trying to get a nice even layer without making it too dark in one spot or too thick in one spot. On the jar, and it's always helpful to read the jar because all the instructions are on the jar. It also says like what cone it fires to. It's like what temperature it goes to. Cone is referring to temperature. That you can put it on greenware or bisque. Greenware is any clay that has not been fired yet, right? Then that ranges from plastic to bone dry, right? With leather hard being in the middle. And it also says put 3 liberal coats on, right? Liberal does not mean slapped on. Liberal just means, you know, your brush is full, you apply it. Okay, I'm right around full circle here. I know because I started at one of my lines and I kind of counted because it can get confusing. Like I did a visual trick. I should have told you that when I started, but it's sort of something I do automatically, which is like I give myself that's the spot where I'm coming from, and I make sure I turn around to that spot when I'm doing a same coat. So I give myself like all right, I'm starting at this mark, and then you know. So now it's going to take a little longer to dry, and I'm not going to touch it because I can see that it's glossy. And there's shine on it. So if I touched it now, I'd be pulling off some of the glaze off the surface. So I'm gonna put my top on my glaze. I'm going to, I can wrap this in plastic so it doesn't dry out, or I can rinse it and then just reuse it, which is what I'm gonna do instead of waste plastic right now. It's not a waste, it's just, this is what I'm gonna do. And then I'm gonna come back in another like 5 minutes or so to add my last coat. Okay? I'll show you that, and then we're going to wait till that surface dries, and then we're going to cover it until the next day when we go to add our next color for me, which will be red. Okay, third and final coat of the white on my pot. If you look closely in the video, you can see that it doesn't have full coverage quite yet. And then I'm going to take my little design patterns and I'm going to set them aside to use in the next step or so. But I'm going to add that I'm making sure the top is on tight before I shake. I've had people shake with the top not tight, and it makes a huge mess. There's one of my favorite, I mean, you guys probably don't Facebook because you're not old, but I Facebook, and there's one of the groups I belong to is called, well, it has a bad word in it, but it's called Pottery S Show, and it's just where people share their like major mistakes, or like they made a beautiful pot and dropped it on the ground, or like they're like throwing the tallest thing they ever made and it falls over. And so like we just commiserate on this. Okay, I'm gonna go this way now, just so you know, but just after I get to the, and I have a sight line of where I'm starting from, and I'm adding glaze. Okay, like I'm citing that I'm starting right at this line, and I know where it is, so that when I make it all the way around, I know I've done my third coat in completion. So when you think that bad things go wrong to only you, you're wrong. There is a whole Facebook group donated to sharing when things go wrong in the ceramics. Kind of makes you feel better. I don't know. Just to share it and be able to say the words that you need to say to get over it. You just gotta say it. Again, third and final coat. So what's gonna happen is I'm going to let this surface dry again, and then I'm gonna do one last step, which is called burnishing. And burnishing is rubbing the surface to make it appear more shiny. And some people take a long time to do this. I don't want you to take a long time to burnish. If you're in an advanced class and you're doing blackware with me, you do need to take a long time. You're not doing the design patterning that takes the long time for the rest of us, but you are doing this black, and the success in the black is dependent on how well you burnish. So just a FY. And why is it helpful to paint in the other direction? It is just to hide those brush marks. Because like you can see, even when you add another coat, it wants to like pull the coat below it with it, you know, if you brush too many strokes with it, and that's just not a good thing. So going in a different direction helps prevent that. It makes a surface area that looks and appears to be more consistent and even by changing the direction. So just do it, even though you have to fight against your nature to go with whatever way you normally went or is innate to you. I don't know if they burnish at the end. When you do polychrome, I think they might, but it really depends on the look you want. Polychrome meaning multiple color paint, painting Southwest pattern. That's what they call it, polychrome. So essentially I'm painting the background, right? Like my design's gonna go over the white. Okay, I'm getting close to my full, oops, flicked it, chunk. Close to my line. You should be able to, by the third coat, you should almost be able to see the difference between a solid coverage and like partial coverage. As you're applying it, but you may not. Give yourself a point to start and stop from. Okay, nice first coats. Okay, I am going to just now let that surface area soak in a little. Oops, I got some on. Okay. I'm gonna let that soak in so that it has a time to set up. Now it's going to take a little bit longer than the first time I did it, right? So, just making sure I get my lip. So that means I'm going to give it, I'm going to come back, I'm going to set my timer. I'm going to come back and give it, 10, 15 minutes. Do not forget, it's too late in the game to make a mistake. You know what I mean? And screw up your pot. So Set a timer.